Hello everybody, this video is a bit different to my usual output. I know some people do enjoy that, and for some people it's not their cup of tea at all, so no problem. But if you do enjoy it and you're willing to listen for a while, I'd advise maybe you get a cup of tea and just let me know your thoughts down below, because I think this is a really big issue and a massive blind spot in the online political conversation at the moment. If we don't work this out, I personally think it's going to be very hard to see positive change coming to the UK and further afield. And this raises a major question in this day and age, which is, what are we really trying to do here? Is it just to be right, to smash and destroy left-wing opponents and all that sort of stuff with quote-unquote facts and logic, often capitalised? Well, I know that makes for good content that does well in the algorithm, but I don't think that really changes anything. I think what brings positive change is an evolution of the self, which leads on to a collective evolution with that. But if we're honest, or at least if I'm honest, I've had to realise that that isn't exactly healthy behaviour, and I have to try and minimise that sort of thing. Why? Because it leads to a more coherent worldview. If you align yourself with the truth in life, you tend to find that you have much better outcomes, both in your personal relationships and how you view life itself. And that's why when approaching any issue these days, I think a good place to start is a person you're listening to good faith or not, whether they're left-wing or right-wing or in the centre or wherever. To me, it doesn't matter so much what they believe, it's just, are they consistent in what they're saying? Are they obviously missing things out to prove their point? If that's the case, they may not be telling the total truth. They may not even recognise it themselves, but it is a good measure to start with. Now, this isn't really a consideration for online media. Now, I'm not making an argument here for mainstream media. We all know they lie all the time with what suits them. But the algorithm tends to drive the most out there content, the most shocking content, the thing that's the most emotive, usually angry. And the problem is it can be full of those half-truths. What this then leads to is the development of what are known as echo chambers, a place where you only hear your own view fed back to you, and you might be missing out on vital truths. That can also lead into rabbit holes. Things get deeper and deeper, and instead of listening to a holistic set of views, instead you just believe your own, or some people do. And what that means is people get more excited, more angry. You get purity spiraling as well, people trying to be more based, more right-wing, more right, or whatever else that may well mean. That's why I've come to believe that some people out there, despite trying to push a cause forward, do more harm than good. Why? Because they come across as a bit wacky in the end, a little bit ideologically rooted. They can't really see the truth, and they're acting from an angry energy within. But the problem with this is that many people realise that their lives are suffering because of it. They're not happy anymore. They're angry all the time about something. They might hate people when they go out because they have different views to them, and so on. And after a while, many people realise this isn't actually very healthy for me. And just like the guy at the beginning of the video, they then switch sides politically because they think that's the answer. But that's not really the answer. Now, I'm saying all of this from personal experience. As some of you may know, I used to be a bit of a lefty in my 20s. And I actually was listening to Peter Hitchens, of all people, one day. He was a bit of a proto-Jordan Peterson figure for me. I'm sure he wouldn't like that. But he was. And I was listening to him speak about, I think it was the novelist Arthur Koestler, who he found from him that people who are very ideologically driven in their politics, have a lot to say, almost aggressive with it, usually have a problem with themselves. And that really made me think, because I had a few problems with myself at that point in my life. Now, I don't want to be all diddums about it, but I'd had some hard times in life, as many people do, and I'd become resentful towards life itself and some key people in my life. And I realised on reflection that a lot of that anger was being projected into the left-wing views I had. Capitalism is evil and toxic masculinity, all the stuff that was around during my time at university. Now, this was a very powerful realisation, because I could move away from being angry with the world and start to deal with some of the issues I had at root. That, of course, made my life a much better thing. I was more happy internally. And I thought, I'm just going to stay away from politics and get on with my life now and go to work. No, I did that for many years and just stayed neutral with my own private political views, but I think we all know things just keep getting worse in the UK. As I often speak about on this channel, the country feels like it's in decline. Western culture feels like it's in decline. Men seem demoralised. We lack a sense of vitality and meaning in the world, and that made me start things like this channel. And while I'm far from perfect myself, I have tried to promote this idea of being calm and rational when looking at the world, trying not to be angry. I know some people don't like that. They think we need to be really angry. And I've always said I think that actually backfires. I think it harms things more than helps things. And I'll lay out why. Again, as I stated earlier, when you have an argument, you can see how anger can damage an interaction and a discourse, if you will. But the more I go on the online world, especially on Twitter and elements of YouTube, you do see people playing up to that anger on both the left and the right. And then, of course, as I say, more and more people go into these rabbit holes and these echo chambers. And then eventually they come out and they say, do you know what, this was all nonsense. It just made me ill, made me an angry person. Further to that, people who do get into political issues start, yelling and going on and on to people in their personal lives about whatever it is they've discovered. And it may seem like what you're saying is really true, but to the person you're saying it to, the people that really need to be won over, if you like, they often just think this person's a bit wacky, they're a bit OTT, and I don't really want to be involved in what they're involved in. But the real point I'm getting at here is people approach politics sometimes with the wrong energy. I know I have. And what that leads to down the line is it having a toxic edge to it. And what that means down the line is people turn against it, and then they do this whole my story, moving away from certain political ideology, whatever it happened to be. And then what they think is, oh, I'm now on the right side of whatever the debate was. But what we realise, what we've missed, if you like, is that there are valid things to be said on the right side of politics. And many people who go too far with it end up destroying those real solid values and truths that need to be shared because they've approached it with the wrong energy and gone too extreme or too hyper due to their own hang-ups within. It also seems to me that this is how the liberal system maintains its control. It makes out anything outside of it is somehow extreme, and that's only reaffirmed when you get people who are ranting and raving or inspired only by angry content and so on. That's made worse with lots of the online content too. The problem with that is the liberal system can say, look at these crazy people outside of me. But in reality, many people aren't crazy, and there are lots of things that need to be said. And you can say them from a deeply rooted, truthful, loving place where you're open to being wrong, where you're not so ideological you think everything I know is right. And it seems to me that it is the people that will take up that approach that will win in the long run, because it's that will show up the innate hypocrisy of the liberalist system. This is why I'm often speaking about tradition on this channel. It's that tradition that gives us a path at the revolution of the self and a path forward to align ourselves with much deeper values that can stand up to and even conquer liberalist modernity. Now, it's my view that that can only really be achieved if people can come to it and feel that they're gaining, both personally, soulfully, spiritually, physically, everything else included. And of course, all of those things are on offer. But if it's clouded by anger and hatred and resentment, it will never really get out of gear one. As I say very often, these latter issues just play into the hands of the liberalist system. You'll just be accused of being full of hate, and henceforth what you believe about the world will be also associated with hate, quote unquote. And it doesn't have to be at all. I mean, as I often say, I work very hard to ensure that what I'm saying and what I'm believing isn't rooted in any form of hating anybody else, but the most social and harmonious outcome for Britain, for Europe, even for the world. Now, it may be completely outside of the liberal paradigm, but that doesn't mean that my heart is in any way twisted. And of course, I'm not implying that anyone who's listening to this is in that situation. I'm just saying that I've seen this on both the right and the left in politics, and it seems to me to be very unhealthy. It doesn't seem to be serving humanity. It seems to be taking from us to our lower instincts, egoic instincts, if you like, to get angry and upset and sometimes find an outlet for our own madness. But I do intend to try and keep this approach front and centre in everything I do in the future. I know most people don't like it, but I do think it's the only healthy way with what we've got coming. And getting angry and upset and yelling tends to backfire quite badly, and like I say, often blinds your judgment as well. Even if I was in a minority of one, I would still believe this, as I believe it to be the truth. But if there is anyone out there who agrees, do let me know down below. And if you disagree, do let me know why. Apart from that, I'll have more regular output coming soon. Do subscribe to the channel if you're new, and thank you again for watching.